Hi, everyone. Welcome to our channel. According to Douglas Macgregor, he also subsequently mentioned that our commitment to Ukraine will persist as long as it remains. However, he believes this statement is primarily intended for the consumption of the collective West. Macgregor emphasizes the narrative that cannot be abandoned until it is unequivocally dismantled. The narrative that asserts Ukraine is currently winning and will ultimately emerge victorious. Any deviation from this line is deemed unacceptable. It's important to note that he is requesting a substantial financial commitment, around $45 billion, in addition to the defense budget, which stands at about $858 billion. The insistence on portraying Ukraine as not only a contender, but a surefire winner is seen as crucial to securing the necessary support for the ongoing proxy war. Or certainly, the answer is affirmative, and let's delve into the financial aspect once again for clarity. The essence of what's happening involves a fiscal maneuver from one pocket to another in the eyes of the taxpayer. We're essentially extracting funds from the Treasury, divesting ourselves of it through the Department of Defense, and directing it towards the defense industries and their stakeholders. Subsequently, funds circulate back to Congress as a form of appreciation for this substantial wealth transfer. It's crucial to dispel that all this money is simply materializing. Now, when it comes to the equipment, a significant portion of it may never reach its intended destination. The timeline is contingent on how much longer Ukraine endures, and as we'll delve into in the next 30 minutes, there are doubts about their longevity to absorb and integrate the provided resources. And regarding the Patriot system, it consists of one battery, presumably 8 launchers, 128 missiles per loaner, and approximately 93 personnel in the battery. There might be a few more, considering the ostensible need for training. However, if we attempt to train individuals, it could take several months before the system becomes operational. The likelihood is that we'll resort to contractors, potentially U.S. soldiers, retired or former, working as contractors to make the equipment functional. It's essential to note that the Patriot system serves as point defense, capable of protecting specific areas or key military installations, but its impact on the overall battle may not be substantial once it arrives. This information is provided by the Deputy Minister of Defense. Certainly, his statement was directed towards a mixed audience, not exclusively military, but inclusive of civilians. In essence, he conveyed that the intensity of the ongoing war is escalating, and with each passing day, the likelihood of our involvement grows. That's the imminent course of action. He has evidently miscalculated the situation right from the start. In response to Ukraine seizing the strategic initiative, launching counteroffensives, winning battles in cities like Kiev and other northern regions, he tried various domestic measures to mobilize additional forces, especially in the east. However, these efforts are facing challenges. The training and equipping of these forces are notably inadequate. He is, in my assessment, quite detached from reality, with particular reference to Dave Petraeus. Once again, David Petraeus seems to be embracing a fictional narrative, aligning with the description I provided earlier. This aligns with his background, as he is a product of the same group, pushing for a confrontation with Russia, having previously played a leading role in advocating for military involvement in Iraq, Syria, and Afghanistan. Their objectives extended beyond defeating the enemy or toppling regimes. They aim to occupy and transform these regions with Petraeus at the forefront. It appears that he's aligning himself with the established status quo in Washington, demonstrating a detachment from reality. Contrary to Petraeus' claim, Russian forces are not poorly trained. In fact, they are highly skilled. Having observed films from various sources in Europe, I was impressed with the proficiency of Russian operations. On the other hand, the Ukrainians have suffered significant losses, acknowledging 35,000 missing and over 100,000. Considering these numbers, the casualties amount to over 150,000. Desperation has led Ukraine to mobilize teenagers aged 13 to 15 and even calling up disabled individuals. This represents a significant influx of hundreds of thousands of untrained individuals. Interestingly, Prescrius' accusation against the Russians aligns more accurately with the description of the Ukrainian forces pitted against them. He is currently facing a challenging situation. It seems he is not yet ready to admit that Russia cannot endure the suffering imposed by Ukrainians, Americans, and Europeans, a belief he might still hold. However, there will likely come a point, and we should expedite that realization, when he understands that this war is unsustainable, not only due to the significant battlefield losses surpassing what they endured over 9 years in Afghanistan in just the first 10 months of this conflict, but also because of the substantial damage inflicted on their economy. The financial system, personal confidence, and the impact of sanctions, along with export controls, are bringing their industry to its knees. His statements seem to echo a widely disseminated script in Washington, with him and Lindsey Graham, among others, repeatedly asserting information as if it were true, even though it's not. Contrary to the narrative, Russian industries are far from being on the verge of collapse. In fact, they are thriving, exporting more oil and gas than ever, and accumulating substantial wealth. The Russian population, if anything, appears more exuberant and enthusiastic about the war than Putin might privately prefer. He has taken measures to restrain radical socialist elements who advocate extreme actions such as wiping Ukraine off the map, a stance Putin deems absurd and has no intention of pursuing. No, that comparison is like comparing apples and oranges. It's worth noting that after the initial entry into Afghanistan, the Russian-dominated forces largely withdrawn. They heavily relied on reservists from neighboring Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and other Central Asian republics, which are now independent countries. These forces were not particularly enthusiastic about their presence and didn't contribute significantly. The war you're describing is very different. It's existential for the Russians, unlike the situation had nothing existential about it. The casualty figures are around 30,000 at most, maybe 35, with an equal number. However, it's essential to consider that the Russians have established a comprehensive medical support